Let's be honest, we all lie. It's kind of fundamental to how we get through the day. I mean, from those tiny little fibs to protect someone's feelings, all the way to deceptions that can just shatter lives, it's a massive spectrum. But what happens when you cross a line and you just can't find your way back?
Oh, come on, you know you have. We've all been there. Your friend asks if you like their new haircut and you say, it's fantastic when, you know, or you get a gift that you're definitely re-gifting later, but you say you love it. Those are just the little social lubricants we use to keep things running smoothly.
But see, that's where the path really forks, because today we're diving into what happens when lying stops being a choice and becomes a compulsion, an uncontrollable urge that can seriously unravel a person's entire life.
Okay, so to really get our heads around the compulsive side of things, we first have to agree that not all lies are created equal. It's a whole spectrum, really. And what it all boils down to is the intent behind the lie.
Let's just break it down. So over on one end, you've got your white lies, totally harmless, meant to spare feelings. Then, in the middle, you have gray lies. You know, a bit more self-serving, like blaming traffic when you overslept. A little shady, sure, but we get it. But then, on the far end, you have real lies, the nasty ones, designed purely to cause harm. And here's the key takeaway, guys. Pathological liars, they often live in that world of gray and real lies.
So let's get to the real heart of the matter. What exactly is pathological lying? Because it's so much more than just being a frequent fibber. It's a really distinct and honestly complex pattern of behavior.
And this is what makes it so baffling. The urge is compulsive. The lies can be incredibly elaborate, just unbelievably detailed. But here's the kicker. They often happen for no clear reason at all. And they usually end up hurting the liar more than anyone, causing them jobs, relationships, their own sanity. And yet, it just keeps happening.
And you know, this isn't some new internet trend or TikTok challenge. Psychiatrists have had a name for this for centuries, pseudologia fantastica. Sometimes it's called mythomania. The fact that we've been trying to figure this out for so long tells you just how deep and troubling this condition really is. Now, here's a really crucial detail you should know. You won't actually find pathological lying as its own separate diagnosis in the big psychiatric handbook, the DSM-5. It's usually seen as a symptom of other disorders, but it can stand on its own. And what's so important to know is that it almost always starts in the teenage years, which sets up a pattern that can last an entire lifetime. So you might be asking yourself, if it's not an official diagnosis, how do experts even spot it? Well, they look for a really consistent pattern of 4 core behaviors that, when you see them together, paint a pretty clear picture.
All right, let's break them down. First, the lying is just excessive. It's constant. Second, and this is a big one, the lies don't seem to have a point. There's no obvious gain. Third, this isn't a phase, it's a long-term problem. And finally, the lying is the main issue itself. It's the condition, not just a symptom of something else.
This quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. It gets to the central paradox of the whole thing. See, most of us lie to get something, right? To avoid trouble, to get an advantage. But with pathological lying, the stories are often totally self-sabotaging. They'll invent these wild tales that are super easy to disprove and will, inevitably blow up in their face. It's like they're building a house of cards and they have to know it's all going to come tumbling down. Okay, so that's all the clinical stuff, but let's bring this down to earth. What does this actually look like in real life? How can you learn to spot the patterns?
First off, forget everything you've heard about liars not making eye contact or fidgeting. That's mostly myth. The real clues, they aren't in body language. They're in the stories themselves, woven over a long, long time.
What you're really looking for are the cracks in the narrative. Do their stories kind of shift and change every time they tell them? Are their anecdotes always these super dramatic, over-the-top tales where they're either the hero or the victim? And are the details impossible to check? Think of it like a tangled web. The more threads they spin, the harder it is to keep it all from just completely unraveling. And eventually, you just start to notice the little inconsistencies, the details that don't add up, until the whole story just feels hollow. So this brings us to what might be the hardest but also the most important part of this conversation. If you think someone in your life is a pathological liar, what do you do? How do you handle it? And is there any way for them to get help? First, let's just acknowledge how unbelievably tough this situation is. I mean, it's a behavior that can completely destroy trust. And while psychotherapy is the main form of treatment, it is a huge challenge. Think about it. How do you treat a condition when the main symptom, the lying, is happening right there in the therapy room? Here's a hard truth, and it's a tough pill to swallow.
You can't force someone to change. You just can't. But what you can do, what you have power over, is how you respond to the behavior. And by doing that, you can protect your own well-being.
So here are 3 really practical things you can try. Number 1, stay calm. Getting angry just adds fuel to the fire. 2, and listen, this one is absolutely crucial. Do not engage with the lies. Don't argue, but don't play along either. Simply saying something like, "I know that's not true," and then changing the subject, it removes the audience for the performance. Validating the lies is like watering a weed. And 3, gently suggest they talk to a professional. Frame it as being about your concern for them.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big picture thought to chew on. This is obviously a really complex individual condition, but it does make you think, doesn't it? How can we, as friends, as family, as a society, build worlds where telling the truth is just an easier and safer path to walk than a tangled road of lies?